everyone, and welcome to another episode of our education series. I'm Icodin, and today we're exploring one of the most debated topics in education, namely standardized testing. Do standardized tests truly measure student potential? What are their greatest benefits? But where are their limitations? And how well do they serve gifted learners? Well, to answer these questions, I'm delighted to welcome today two distinguished guests. Joining us here from USA, we have with us Dr. Elias Alonzo. Welcome. He is the Executive Director of AE, and he is an expert in educational assessment and gifted education. We are very happy to have you here today. And on the other hand, we are very honored to welcome Mrs. Cristina Emanuela Dascălu. She's a member of the Romanian Parliament and Vice President of the Education Committee in the Chamber of the Romanian, in the Romanian Chamber of Deputies. Welcome, Cristina.
Nice to join you both again, and I hope more often.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just because we were in this formula long time ago during a conference. Yeah. Right. Okay. Wonderful. Now, before diving into our topic, I would like, first of all, to ask each of you to introduce yourselves a little bit, especially in connection to your love for education. Elias?
Thank you, Aura. It's an honor to join you and Professor Dascălu today. My name is Elias Alonzo, and yes, I'm Executive Director of AE International. And I'm also a school director. I run several schools here in the United States and actually on the international level. I've also had the privilege to author a few books on literacy and even recently on artificial intelligence. I have over 25 years of educational leadership experience, and that includes working in turnaround works with public and private schools, workforce development, and on the international level, I've had partnerships with Romania, Moldova, the Ukraine, and really beyond. I have seen assessment from every angle. I've seen it as a teacher, as an administrator, a policy collaborator, and as the father of 4 gifted children. And I'm going to say, as far as my passion, it stems from both professional conviction and personal experience. I believe education must nurture the whole child, that intellect, the heart, and the spirit, so that every student can discover and use their God-given talents in the service of others. That's why conversations like the ones we have today are important and they matter. Thank you again for inviting me.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for this introduction. Now, going to Cristina, could you tell us for our audience about your story in connection to education?
I come from a family of teachers. Both my parents were teachers. I have an elder sister who is also a teacher, and she has been a principal of a high school for a long time. And I come from a family where a lot of people are involved in education. Regarding myself, I have 35 years of teaching at university, real teaching at university level. 15 years in the United States. From the United States, I have 2 master's degrees and 1 PhD. From the total of my 5 master's degrees and my 1 PhD. And I have been involved in various education venues as well as administrative. In education, now I'm also the Vice Director of International Relations at Apollonia University in Iași. And at the same university, I was in the past the Dean at the School of Communication Science and the President of the Senate, University Senate. And I held similar positions at other universities in Romania and abroad. especially the one of Vice Rector of International Research. And I have some experience in teaching at pre-university level, high school level, and even grades 1st to 8th grade, at the same time as being a university professor. So it was interesting to me to see education starting from kindergarten all the way to PhD level. And I really like the diversity. And I do research in education. I am involved in that as well. And now, as a member of the parliament, I'm the vice president of the education committee. And in my own party, I'm in charge of education at the national level. So those are just a few things connected to my education background.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, Elias, going directly into our topic, what exactly is standardizing testing? For those who do not really know, and why has it become such an important component of education systems around the world? Because as far as I as far as I know, it is worldwide.
Thank you for the question. Standardized testing is actually something that refers to assessments that are administered and that they're scored or graded and usually consistently across a large group of students. And usually what it allows for is really a meaningful comparison of student performance. So it measures how the students are doing throughout the school year and over the years regarding their overall achievement. It's become a central thing, and I'm going to say internationally, because it does provide data. And in schools, we are often held accountable to the success that we have with students. And this is one way of measuring that success is by having these assessments. These assessments allow for accountability. They allow us to make decisions regarding resource allocation. And also they help us to identify where we have gaps. Where have we missed the mark? Where is it that we aren't meeting the needs of the student? And that's what this data does provide through the standardized testing. And I think it's very important, especially regarding equity or making things even for all students. And especially when you have diverse systems like those that we have here in the United States and even those in Romania. So standardized testing is, again, one of the ways that we can measure how student achievement is happening at the school level.
Okay, thank you. So these might be the advantages, but are there any limitations?
Well, I'm going to say that the advantages are, again, they provide a benchmark. They give us, again, that data so that we, as whether we're school leaders or policymakers, they let us track progress over time. They can help us so that we can identify what interventions we might need for students and for our teachers. If the test is well designed, it does provide good feedback. As far as limitations, the limitations is that sometimes it only captures a narrow slice of learning or a small single component of learning. And sometimes what it does, it doesn't measure the overall student's, performance, and it undervalues creativity, practical skills, emotional intelligence, and even long-term potential. So again, we're not able through these standardized tests to really measure some of the motivation or some of those limitations that sometimes students have because of their background, their experiences, or even their access to resources. So there are limitations, and hopefully, this is where we have to come together to come up with an answer.
Thank you so much, Elias. Now, going to Cristina, from the perspective of the Romanian educational system, what role do standardized tests have at this moment in our system?
Standardized assessments remain the backbone of the Romanian education system. particularly through the national assessment and the baccalaureate degree. So whenever they have to end the 8th grade and go to high school, or when they end high school. Unfortunately, they function primarily as high-stakes selection tools rather than instruments that actually improve learning. So a modern assessment should do more than rank students. It should identify the strengths, detect the learning gaps as early as possible, and guide teachers in supporting every child's development. And the test should somehow open more opportunities rather than close doors. And sometimes, unfortunately, standardized tests can do that.
They can close doors.
They can close doors. Sometimes it happens.
Okay. Then in this case, where should the balance be between accountability, educational quality, and at the same time, personalized learning? If possible.
It has to be a balance there. It has to be a balance, definitely. And, unfortunately, we don't speak a lot about an assessment that evolved in Romania over the years. Because while, let's say, the educational landscape has changed dramatically, we speak now about artificial intelligence, for example, and its use in classrooms. The assessment model here in Romania has not changed accordingly. It has changed very, very little.
It has changed a bit in terms of ages, because now in the Romanian system, they have implemented standardized testing starting from the 2nd grade.
Right.
Yeah.
More tests.
Every 2 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if we put in the same balance the fact that schools always speak about underfunding, about teacher shortages, and we know what happened in the Romanian system with the new education law, and especially with all the cuts in the educational system. We speak about curriculum instability and all those repeated reforms, and still this system of standardized tests remained almost unchanged. So we need to look at students' needs today, and students need assessments that reflect our 21st century skills, and that means critical thinking, creative thinking, adaptability. Not simply this ability to basically reproduce information, because standardized tests are based a lot on memorization and repeated action, and they do not show what a student can really do. So education has changed. Our exams must change with education, and we also speak about something else, about the fact that the student's future should not be defined by just a few hours spent in an examination room, because the potential of each student is actually greater than just a test score, and we should put everything in balance.
Let's leave a little bit apart the students themselves, and let's focus a little bit upon the teachers and upon the lesson plans that they might use during a school year. How do standardized testing influence lesson planning, if it does?
Well, for me, and it's something, Cristina, you hit the nail on the head with talking about balance, because sometimes in standardized testing, often us schools, we use it as a crutch, and we only focus on the results, and we start losing sight of the individual child. And again, sometimes when we test, we're testing to the middle of the bell curve. So students that are underperformers or gifted students are sometimes left behind because we are doing things to the middle. We're teaching to the middle. And that's why it's really important that in standardized testing, that it's a diagnostic tool. it shouldn't be the destination. It shouldn't be the end. It shouldn't be the only thing, because then that happens to, I think, more harm the school and the student than what we're trying to achieve by using standardized tests. And we also have to combine it with having students be able to submit portfolios, have performance tasks, teacher observations, and then even assessments that are adaptive based on the child, based on where they are. I know that in my work, we use data to personalize learning rather than just to label the student. And that's why it's really important that we have this mix. Right now, a lot of our students, and this is internationally, this is globally, that because of these standardized tests, a lot of our children suffer from anxiety. They lose confidence, sometimes even burnout. And this is something we've seen everywhere from Finland to Singapore. And this is because, again, the test puts a lot of pressure on them. And again, they're children. And we have to give them an opportunity or to meet them where they are and to provide them with the supports to do that. So again, the test shouldn't be the only thing that allows us to measure the growth of a child or the growth of a student.
Yeah.
I want to add a little bit to that, because it's true. Teachers tell us increasingly that they teach for the exam instead of teaching for understanding. And you speak about anxiety, students' anxiety, but parents have anxiety as well.
I wanted
because
to,
they
to ask
speak
you
about
if
that.
there is any feedback that comes to you from families.
Parents speak constantly about anxiety. Students often describe this pressure surrounding a single examination that seems to determine their future. And when everyone feels this future, learning becomes secondary.
And the family atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. It's a problem that influences everybody. So you're talking about accountability a little bit earlier. So that's why accountability should never rely on a single high-stake examination. We need, as you say, Dr. Alonzo, a balanced model. Yes, you have standardized examination for national benchmarking, but you should have, as you said, classroom assessment that values progress, creativity, collaboration, problem solving. I also like portfolios, for instance, that show work in progress.
Here in Romania, when you are about 14 years old, you are supposed to be tested only for maths and Romanian. So only 2 subjects. What about the others?
Good question. Good question. We should have a system where you allow kids and then students at a later age to do whatever, to focus on the areas where they are best. Probably that way it's best for society as well. Of course, you have to have a general background. But you are right. The focus is especially on math and Romanian. So
and sometimes maybe it is not fair when it comes to the chemistry or the physics teachers themselves.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
That happens,
because they might feel that they don't have to push too much in the 7th grade, in the 8th grade, just because it's not their place at that moment. And the families, I suppose, that put a lot of pressure on those teachers.
Exactly. Now, if we speak about so much pressure, now we definitely need something else: better career guidance and psychological support. And it's not a shame to have that. I think every school should have a psychologist there. And greater predictability to reduce that anxiety. I would say that students perform best when they are challenged to his confidence, not overwhelmed by fear. So excellence grows in environments of encouragement, not intimidation. So that's where the role of the teacher is very important.
You're right. Now,
and I'm sorry, I wanted to say something regarding the curriculum, because one of you made a good point about sometimes we only we're only testing math or again the Romanian language, and it does leave gaps. I mean, sometimes it puts, first of all, more pressure on those 2 subject areas, and then what about the rest? And curriculum is something that is aligned not only horizontally, but vertically up and down. So if students miss something in the second grade, when you test them when they're 14 or older, they're going to have gaps and they're going to have those problems that they're not going to give you a good response or a good answer. So it's really important to look at the whole, not only the whole child, but even the whole curriculum and what we're testing our children on.
Thank you. Now, let's focus a little bit, especially on gifted education. Can highly gifted students underperform when it comes to a standardized test?
I'm going to say yes.
Happen?
Yes, no, it happens. And that I'm actually somebody.
I hope the ones who are watching us now are a little bit surprised, because if you say gifted, you could say that the child could perform in any kind of environment or test.
For a gifted child, and there's a lot of different factors that might influence how they respond. And for me, sometimes they underperform because of anxiety. A gifted child often wants to be perfect in what they do. And right away, when they start thinking, I'm not going to do well or whatever, they tend to underperform or they miss something there. They also have, they suffer sometimes from being bored. Sometimes the test or the preparation is a lot of what Cristina said about, memorization and just repeating things. And some of those things are too sort of low level for them. So they tend to get bored and they don't, when they take the test, they don't take it seriously.
And
they just go.
Teachers start teaching you tips and tricks. Because maybe you have a driving license. You've got a driving license, but now if you go and sit for a test at the Romanian police, you might not perform too well. Just because you haven't prepared, especially for that type of test. It usually happens with the tests in English and French, for instance, at the institutes. That's a different thing between being tested for B level of speaking, and that's a different thing to go and sit for a Cambridge exam, which in fact that's quite the same thing, but in a very different manner. So coming back to the gifted students, that's why I said that they could underperform.
Yes, and sometimes the test doesn't. Again, we're all gifted in different ways. So sometimes the test is directed or geared towards one direction. And so a student that's gifted in whether it's language or maybe the arts, music, or even in kinetic or physical activity, that's something that's not going to be measured there. And again, you can have somebody that's a great tradesman, they're a great mechanic or engineer or something, where some of those things aren't captured in these types of tests because, again, they're only directed at one area or one level. The other thing that sometimes you have is experiences. So if you take a child, whether gifted or not, that lives in the city, in an urban area, and you give them that standardized test as opposed to somebody who's out in the country away, and maybe they haven't had the experiences or they don't know some of the things that are on those tests because, again, they just don't know. They don't know it. And that is something that sometimes we also have to take into account when we look at these tests for whether it's a regular student or a gifted student.
Now, Cristina, in this case, how could we distinguish between, let's say, so high academic achievement versus genuine giftedness?
It's not easy. That's why you need to have people who are trained in doing so. And you also need to have an educational system that allows you to look for such things. For instance, this giftedness extends far beyond what we talk about those standardized tests and creativity, leadership, imagination, artistic talent. You mentioned also sports, right? You being good in sports or whatever, your scientific curiosity, maybe entrepreneurial thinking, all those remain invisible in traditional testing. So assessment in that case should combine somehow the standardized testing with teacher observations, with portfolios you mentioned before, with the psychological evaluation and the authentic performance tasks. But to do so, that means that you should have a system where you have screening, early screening, and people who know how to do the screening, and specialized teacher training, and a curricula. You mentioned the curriculum, right? A curricula that is differentiated, and maybe mentorship programs and partnerships, maybe with universities, especially for gifted kids, and dedicating funding. We have to talk about that. I mean, we also need funds. We need money to make sure that we allow those kids, the gifted kids, to be there where their place is. Performance, excellence, and to do it so with a good heart and in good spirits and being happy. So I would say that gifted education should become part of public education. Should not be a privilege only to families that have, let's say, the opportunity to get the kid in schools. Like in Romania, we have a school for gifted kids, but it's not a public school, it's a private school, and it's quite expensive.
It's only one?
Exactly.
One
and,
school, I don't know how many. Anyway.
Talent is somehow equally distributed among children, but opportunity, unfortunately, is not. So public policy somehow should close this gap. And now we have digital technologies, we have adaptive assessment, we can have competency-based evaluation. So all those offer other opportunities that maybe we didn't have before. And technology should support teachers and not replace their professional judgment. And yes, all those need to be done in a humane and personalized way, I would say.
I would stick a little bit to the portfolios. Here in Romania, when you say portfolio, it means that it's something easy and nice to have, and the teacher will be happy and the family will be happy just because you have a chance to improve your final mark. Yeah, more or less. Yeah. But as far as I know, in USA, portfolios and tracking portfolios over the years in the case of any child, in fact, is very important. Could you develop a little bit this way of working with portfolios in USA?
Yes, and one of the things, and talking about the funding and all of those things is again, schools need to have an opportunity to measure all students, because that's the thing. It would be a disservice to Romania or any country if we leave children behind, students that might be gifted in something, but because, again, they don't have the funds or they don't have the income as a family, that we leave them behind. Romania loses on that. And that's why it's really important that in public education, a gifted program is included. Regarding portfolios, the portfolios, what they provide, and whether it's project-based or any type of collection of student work, those are things that actually can really travel with the student from grade to grade, eventually even going to the university level. That is something that we do here. We have an advanced placement program that when you are in high school here, you're able to, and again, it could be in the arts, it can be in literature, it could be in mathematics. You build a portfolio that's something that you're able to even take to the university level, where you can even get some credits ahead of time, so to speak. Using your portfolio, they accept it as sort of an entrance exam for you, and this way they can give you credit for, well, no, this student is gifted, or it already shows that they're able to achieve and have good performance in this area. And that is something that would be really important. This is also something that allows the parents to take part, because usually with portfolios, it's a combination of the school, the teacher, the parents working together to maintain that portfolio so that, again, it travels, we track the growth of the child from year to year.
And as far as I know, portfolios are not related only to paperwork.
No.
No? Could you explain a little bit? Because this is interesting. Here in Romania, we still consider it only something that you can touch, paperwork, more or less.
No, portfolios could be really anything. And you have, for example, here in
maybe
workforce.
We can inspire teachers and parents, you know?
No, and here, for example, in workforce development, a portfolio can include everything from, again, a drawing, a sculpture. If they work in, for example, they're good at automotive work, or they're good with computers. It could actually document, and it doesn't have to be the actual computer in the portfolio, but pictures of the work that they've done, images of they assembled a computer or a drone or what have you. It is again capturing and memorializing the growth of the student in these different areas. They could be a chef, and you could show again things that everything from recipes to meals that they've been able to do. It shows their giftedness. It captures it, and it's able to again document for whoever's gonna again, whether it's a university or another school can measure that.
Yeah, and somehow it makes also the transition to the workplace. What I like about portfolios, and you have those two kind of portfolios. I mean, you have many times, but in one way you have the developmental portfolios where you focus on the process of learning, where you highlight the drafts, the revisions, you see the ongoing process of everything. But you also have the showcase portfolios, those that you mentioned that you can use also for entrance exams to certain universities. And that's where the students pick from whatever work they have done during their years in high school, for instance, to curate and in a way present their best work to potential employers or to potential colleges or assessment boards. You mentioned No Child Left Behind. There was an American, right, in the American politics, something like that. What happened to that? Did it work or not? This is my curiosity.
Actually, within the last, I'm going to say 30, 40 years, and even going back quite a while, back to the 1950s, the United States has often focused on that standardized testing, that accountability. And No Child Left Behind, Every Child Can Succeed, ESSA, those are federal programs that really provide not only the funding, but really the direction, the policy to make sure that we aren't leaving children behind, that every child, no matter whether they are, again, the family has a good income or not, or whether the student has a disability or not, is not left behind. They put the responsibility on the schools. They put it on us. And whether I'm a school director, I'm responsible for making sure that every child in my building is going to be successful. And they use the standardized testing as one of the prime, and that's the one issue that we have. They use the standardized testing as the primary measure for this. And this is where some schools, they start only focusing on the testing. And it can't be just the testing. This is why it's very important that we work together and we dialogue and that we create systems that are not just the test. They're the standardized tests that include all these other wonderful things that we've talked about. And I think that's really important. But it was again, government policy to make sure that we didn't leave children behind.
Okay, wonderful. Now, before finishing our episode today, I would like us to look a little bit forward and speak a little bit about the potential influence of artificial intelligence in testing. Elias, how do you see this?
Well, the one thing that artificial intelligence is changing every day. What it was a month ago is not what it is today. And it keeps growing sort of exponentially. It keeps growing bigger and bigger, and it can do so many different things. What it is going to allow is to hopefully address some of those gaps we talked about, where the AI can allow us to develop tests that'll measure a gifted child or a child that is, again, challenged, or a child that has a disability. And that's one of those things that artificial intelligence can do. But our teachers, our administrators need to know how to use these tools. It's not merely just asking your chat GPT or whatever you're using for AI, asking them create a test. No, you have to know what you're doing, how you're doing it. And it's really important that, again, whether you're a teacher, an administrator, or a policymaker, we know that we have to build on that. We have to work together to make sure we're using the resource the right way.
Do you use, I'm just curious, do you use certain types of artificial intelligence for your classes? And if so, which ones? And do you use the normal or the paid versions? I'm just curious.
So, and this is the thing, and I'm not promoting myself. That's what, I just wrote a book on how school administrators can use artificial intelligence, because there are probably a good 20 artificial intelligence resources available out there. Each one does a different task or different tool, but it has to be guided. And this is something that, it has to be guided by humanity. It has to be guided by us. We're the individuals that know our students, that know our school, and know what we want to do. So it's using the tools in the right way so that it's not just merely, again, we have to get away from giving a child a tablet and just leaving. No, you need to know what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're getting out of it. It's not just merely a toy. It's not merely something that's going to occupy their time. No, we need to use these tools in the right way so that, again, we can create tests, assessments, and even supports for the students that come from AI, but they're based on us knowing, again, how we want to use those tools.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And now one last question for you.
Okay.
If you could change or improve only one thing in the educational system, in the way the students in Romania are being tested at this point, what could that be?
Of course, I would say I wouldn't just base everything just on standardized testing, because I admire systems that combine the academic excellence with trust and flexibility, for instance. And I also like the way you do those TV programs. I like talking, for instance, today with Dr. Alonzo, because it's through this dialogue, which is also intercultural dialogue and with people from all over the world about different education systems where we can all learn. That doesn't mean that Romania should copy one country, but we all have good things and bad things in our education systems, and we can learn from one another. For instance, Finland demonstrates the value of continuous assessment and professional autonomy. Singapore, for instance, shows the importance of high expectations with systematic talent development. Estonia, because we speak about artificial intelligence, illustrates how digital innovation can strengthen education without losing, as you say, Dr. Alonzo, its human dimension. But the goal is not for any of us to import another country's system, but to create our own model of excellence. But we do that by helping one another through this path towards excellence. And I would say that education should always measure possibilities, not merely performance. And I would say that every child deserves multiple opportunities to demonstrate knowledge and talent and potential. And the assessment should not be just standardized, but it should become continuous and multidimensional. And it should focus on growth as well as on achievement. So again, if it's just one thing that I would change, I would try to ensure that every student has the right of bright future, and no student's future depends primarily just on a single examination.
I really love the word growth, the way they grew,
Right.
Yeah, throughout the years. Very nice.
We all should do it at any age.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you so much, both. Thank you, Dr. Alonzo. Thank you, Professor Dascălu, for sharing your expertise and perspectives with us today. So standardized testing is an important educational tool, but no single test can capture the full range of a child's abilities. Thank you all for watching us. We invite you to share this episode with your community, with the teachers, with the parents, with the students, and follow us for more episodes regarding educational systems. Thank you so much. Goodbye.